John, do you need part of the bottle of water I just poured from? Would you like half the bottle I just poured in?
Did you, what
I
did you
didn't
do to
drink
it?
from it, I just poured.
What did you do to it?
I like pouring from it. Is it half a bottle?
All right, I have faith.
He's doing good.
Are they, their future student presentation? Oh, that's not.
Oh, no, I'm gonna do that today. That's perfect next week.
That's good.
Well, near you. My wife has to use it.
Do you need somebody else to work?
Everything's ordered.
Hey, Derek,
Those
do
times.
you want to switch?
No, I'll just talk about
We're talking to demons or
it.
times. That's right.
I'm going to call the meeting of Tuesday, November 9th order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to stand for a moment of silence. We're going to remember Josh McCoon of Ligo, who was one of the 157 U.S. COVID-related deaths on October the 31st. Thank you.
Everyone knows we're having microphone challenges here in East Goshen Township. We have remedy, the parts are ordered. Hopefully we'll have a better system going forward soon.
Or there'll be a megaphone that doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. I'll announce the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and is available for view there. Chairman's report, obviously, we want to express condolences, as Michelle noted, to the friends and family of legal officer Josh McCoon, who passed away of COVID on October 31st, of COVID-related illness. Sad situation, wife and 2 children. So.
David, if I can just tag on to that and say that there have been 756,222 deaths that have been COVID-related since this pandemic began. That's in the US.
The board met prior to this meeting, executive session, to talk about personnel issues and legal issues. Township has retained our AAA bond rating from Kroll Bond Rating Agency. Just so everyone knows, we are one of few townships who maintain a AAA rating year in, year out. So it's a testament to our financial management and how we've been good stewards of our township money.
And good to note that we're in a special place as well with East Goshen being AAA, the county being AAA, and the Westchester Area School District being AAA. It is a very, very unusual trifecta, and it doesn't mean that everything is perfect, but financial management is a strong suit, and it's a pretty proud accomplishment to have that resident within the 3 entities that we're all associated with.
Next, a potential passage of the 2022 preliminary budget is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, November 16th, the next meeting. Board and the staff have been working hard to bring in a balanced budget, and we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's now, and hopefully we'll have a budget ready for approval soon. public hearing. We're gonna do a public hearing and we're gonna do this without lawyers and.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was a simple enough change, the ordinance, and not have to go to the court stenographer.
Good.
So I will be doing this myself. I will be opening the hearing now. I'm talking loud since my mic is not working. And we are opening the hearing for consider street closure policy change for special events. Opening the hearing now. This has been a little bit of an ongoing conversation. Well, first of all, actually, let me introduce the exhibits here, as Kristen would do if she was here. We have two exhibits that go with this hearing. We have Exhibit B1, which is the proof of publication in the Daily Local News, dated November 1st, 2021. We also have Exhibit B2, which is an email from Joe Kirk at Buckley Bryan's office, dated November 1st, 2021, to the Daily Local and the Chester County Law Library, providing proposed amendment for public inspection, which was downstairs up until this hearing right now. So essentially, this comes out of a change the board wanted to see in the way that street closures for special events took place. Prior to this, it was a board decision in our ordinance, our vehicular code, stating that the board has the sole discretion to shut down streets for special events. There was a situation that came to the board. There was a vote. There was some disagreement among the board on that particular event, but I think the one thing that everybody agreed on is they don't want to handle the process that way ever again. So I did a little bit of digging with our solicitor, and what we came up with was essentially handling the street closure special event requests on an administrative level. So that required a couple of moving parts. So we have here an ordinance that extrapolates the special events lingo in the Chapter 225, vehicles and traffic. So that's the first part of this. The ordinance has to change, so we take that out of it. What we did then was have a resolution which has to be passed in conjunction with the ordinance change, and that is Resolution 2021-2013. And that would actually allow the board to adopt a internal policy to allow township-owned roads to be closed during special events. So that's essentially the legal move we have to do in order to make it an in-house process. And then the very last part of this, and all these moving parts, is the street closure policy. And you can read through the street closure policy. It's been online now. It was online prior to this meeting in a different form, but there was a couple changes made to the policy in talking to some board members since October 19th. It was stipulated that 70% of the abutting properties had to sign off on it. That now went up to 80% of abutting properties, except when it is a consecutive year event. When it is a consecutive year event, it will be moved up to 90% of the abutting properties would have to sign off on it. So in other words, if it's a second year, you have to increase the amount of people that would sign off on that event.
At that location.
At that location. It's just for that specific location. And then the other minor change that I made is I made it more clear that the paperwork would be provided by the township. In other words, the way the policy was described back in October 19th, it could have meant, when it said in writing by property owners, I didn't want 100 emails from people on the same street. So essentially what I want to see is a petition form, and then have somebody go around to homeowners, sign off. I can count it on one fell swoop, and then handle it from there. And then, minor stuff, well, not minor, actually, it's pretty major. Fire marshal sign off, public works director sign off. So, it's not going to be an arbitrary process. If they meet this criteria, we will grant. So I think that describes pretty much what this is trying to accomplish. I'd like to, we don't have any witnesses in this hearing, so I will close the hearing now. And then the board can debate this and possibly vote on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would you accept a motion to open discussion on the proposed ordinance amendment?
I think we should have a motion, like draft motion number 1.
Yeah.
and then discuss.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to make the motion that we approve the proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 225 of the East Goshen Township Code titled Vehicles and Traffic, Section 225-5, currently titled Streets Closed or Restricted for Construction, Maintenance, or Special Events, so that special event street closures will no longer be governed by said ordinance.
Second motion.
Thank you. Question or comments from the board?
I just have
One, I, relative to the policy and the sign off or review by, in this case, our fire marshal and is it our public works director.
Correct.
Your comment will be on the second motion.
Second motion.
On this, oh, excuse me, okay. I'll
Just for the public to understand that this motion, all it does is get rid of the old ordinance. The second motion will put the new ordinance
It
in.
actually removes the language or special events. It doesn't delete
That's right.
it amends the ordinance to
Remove the
remove
reference to
special
special
events, exactly.
Gotcha, okay.
All right. Any public comment?
Of course. Don't tell me you're Russ Frank.
No, not today, I'm not.
You're not.
I'm Johnny Blue Eyes. It is Russ Frank, 451 Gateway Drive. I've asked several times of this administration once, previous administration numerous times, on why these public hearings can't be put out on constant contact. I understand the Sunshine Law says that you have to public in a public paper. But do you guys realize that the daily local news subscription is down over 70%? And that's overall the distribution of that paper. Not including what East Goshen is a representative of that.
Russ, I did not know, I knew that they, like many local papers, subscriptions to papers are decreasing, not just the paper form, even the e-version are declining. And that's why they're disappearing. Under our current laws, we are required to advertise public notices in a paper of local circulation.
I agree.
That is our go-to. We have sent letters. There has been legislation in years past to Harrisburg to allow local governments, municipalities to use their website or other devices, particularly the website, to advertise public hearings. Clearly, that is the local distribution source these years. People look to websites. There have been lobbyists that have turned that down, and we have just not had success to what we spend. I think we spend approximately $6,000 or more a year on advertisements with the Daily Local News for these required notices. So I'm hearing what you're saying as far as extending our public notices to some of these other media, the social media venues. I would have to, personally, I'd have to think about it. I'm not a social media guy. I don't participate in Facebook or there's a neighbor's site, local neighbor, whatever it's called. I don't
have a
participate.
point of order here.
So,
I appreciate Russ's comment.
but that is somewhat extraneous
It's
to
not
the media.
it's not a comment on the motion, it's a comment on public hearings, so it should be brought up under other matters. But you've made it now, so,
Yeah.
and we hear you, and I think we need to take under consideration how we publicize.
I just make one more comment. I think I've read that new Sunshine Law. Does it really prohibit you from doing that? Is that what you're saying?
That was a question that I had asked of our manager and for our solicitor, whether or not we could simply now use our website to do it. And apparently the answer is no, we cannot. I was hoping that that's where that one was going when that came out. I'm glad you mentioned that, Russ.
But there is a movement, PSAT's, proposed legislation to modernize the public notice, but just hasn't been gotten through Harrisburg yet, so,
All right, thanks.
thanks, man.
Thanks, Russ.
Russ. Okay, any comments on the motion from the public? Any further comments from the board? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. We have a second motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to pass resolution 2021-2013 to adopt a policy allowing township-owned roads to be closed during special events.
I'll second
Mike, you have a comment?
that. Yeah, I did. I now on the policy, thank you for helping me get back in sequence. There is a reference to approval by the Township Public Works Director and the Fire Marshal. I don't want to complicate it, but depending on the event, I presume that either of those two parties would touch base with the police as necessary for any comment they may have on it. It's a presumption that just is normal. I mean, there's regular communication back and forth all the time, but since it's not specifically referenced, I think that's an important element. Certainly the police know about the special event.
Yeah, it was my understanding that practice, Mark Miller has always contacted
Yes.
CEO anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would.
All right, so I'm not going to press for an amendment to this that include the police in it. I don't want to complicate it, but I just think they're an important part of the process of approval when you're closing a road. And
Any other board member comments?
I have one comment. Will people, when they download their petition, will they also get an application for a noise ordinance permit? Because we don't have to make it part of the policy, but if that's part of the packet that they download,
I mean,
print,
I don't see a problem with that, because if it's a special event,
it's probably gonna have amplified music.
It might.
well, it might, but you don't necessarily need amplified music for a noise permit.
No, that's true.
I'd have to check, but I think it's a good idea to package them, so you're
Okay.
able to do that.
And you would, and administratively, you would vet that anyway with the applicant. So,
Okay.
you know, if you're having the Rolling Stones, you're just having James Taylor. I think
Any other comments from the board? Public comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Hello?
oh, please.
Yeah, ask for public comment.
I raised my hand.
Well, we just,
Oh, we missed you then. Come on up, though. Come on up.
Come on up to the microphone.
Absolutely.
Come on down.
Welcome.
at what point do
Hi, my name is John McMullen. I live at 604 Millis Lane. And I did read the permit. I just have one small request, that the board consider maybe 100% of the properties abutting the event to be signed off. And the reason is, we believe in supporting the community. But, most people view their homes as a sacred haven. There's celebrations, there's sicknesses, there's a multitude of events that go on, and many, many things that go on. So, one person may want to say no, and they may be discounted or whatever. So I just, again, ask that, in a perfect world, neighbors will say, let's consider that, but we don't live in a perfect world. So I just ask that 100%, be the threshold.
All right, we've already called the question and voted.
We considered 100%.
We did.
And we decided on 80.
And that's why we have the 80 and then 90% in the subsequent year. So, for example, just hypothetically, if there was 6 homes abutting a cul-de-sac where there was a special event, in the first year, that would be 4.8 houses, would be 80%, but 5.4 in the following year. So all 6 houses would have to approve of that, hypothetically.
Might accomplish
Thank you so much.
part of it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I don't know if I was heard, but I said yeah.
You said
I said yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah, so it's 4-0. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We have no emergency services reports this evening, no financial reports this evening, and so we're down to approval of minutes and treasurer's report. We don't have any minutes because they're not ready yet, so we'll look at those in next week. Treasurer's report, Mr. Ware.
Looks like my mic doesn't work, but that's all right. So we had general fund expenses for this period, primarily routine operating and maintenance expenses, but we did have additional tree removal, annual road striping, which is about $32,000, and plantings at Marydale Pond are finished. Capital reserve fund incurred $109,124 in construction costs for segment A of Bailey Pike Trail, and that was 100% reimbursed by grant dollars, as well as $75,500 was applied towards our new financial software packages, and $81,040 in the Hershey Mill Dam construction costs. Additionally, the bond fund incurred nearly $32,000 in engineering and legal expenses for the trail. It was 32.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we graciously accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
Second motion.
Thank you. Any board discussion, questions?
Please, I have a couple if I might. This is a relatively minor one, but I'm just curious about it. Under MasterCard expenditures, that we use MasterCard for various purchases for expediting and convenience. There is one transaction that has to do with Amazon and photo storage for Parks and Rec. It's not a large sum, but it's $475. I was just curious about storage. I guess that's cloud storage to include archival pics from Parks and Rec and that sort of thing.
Correct.
It just struck me. I kind of went, a lot of pictures, it's a lot of dollars for pictures. I don't mean to knock it. I just was curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to Jason and get more specifics of the necessity, but I get your point.
Okay. Then there was, you don't necessarily have to go to it, but batch 5 of 8, page 1, there's an expenditure, Dave, under Alpha line painting, Alpha Space Control, their line painting services we use. That amount, I forget what the number was, but it's a good piece of change, but is that amount in our general fund budget as just an ongoing operational line expense, or is that an amount that is reimbursed from the liquid fuels account, or allocation from liquid fuels? So in other words, we have a liquid fuels fund, and I know we don't, at the end of the year, we typically transfer, I think, all of the liquid fuels allocation to the general fund to be reimbursed. So I guess this comes under that element of liquid fuels essentially is paying for the line striping, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that was the case. And then, and I don't need to bring this up because we've had lots of back and forth on it, but batch 5 of 8, page 7, there's approximately $29K for sections A and B of the Bailey Pike Trail inspections. I get it, there's a lag in some of these things, particularly section A that was recently completed. Is there any sense, Derek or Dave, when those type of inspections for the trail and the like are going to end, given where we are with the trail right now and the status of it? So I just thought I'd ask that question.
The inspections, Dave could correct me if he's spoken about it, the inspections should be done as far as those inspections that were done. And the bill you're seeing was, I believe it was a September bill.
Oh, okay.
That was the one that I asked them about it.
Yeah, we had actually called McMahon up.
The number of
That's
hours.
yeah.
The number of hours that they billed us for, we thought was more than
It seemed
probable.
Yeah.
But part of it was permitting, as well as the engineers had to be on site to inspect daily.
And I thought there would be some lag when I saw that number, and you're going back to September now, but that should pretty much clear our books on those trail expenses at this point in time, is my understanding.
Well,
And obviously, we're talking about another aspect of it, but at the moment, pretty much done.
we have on batch 3 of 8, page 7, we have a much bigger bill attached to the trail. and I was gonna ask about that. That's 3 of 8, page 7.
And I think I saw that one, John,
Second item,
and I didn't know whether that might have had to do with some of the alternate.
That was the construction of segment A.
That was
from
the actual
Burlington,
construction.
And that one in particular was 100% reimbursed by grant dollars.
okay, well, that's one question. The other question I have, is there ongoing work that we're going to have to pay for in the future? Do we know?
I mean, you're talking about maintenance, or you mean installation?
Anything, apparently $109,000 worth of work was done here. And I'm just wondering if that's the end of it, or if there's more.
The only thing we're discussing right now is fixing the humps that have appeared in the trail. And that is proposed to be used with existing grant dollars.
Okay.
3 humps.
Okay, that's all.
But obviously,
And
a lot of this is policy
But
decisions.
any other.
Sure.
Any of the
And I
other
didn't wanna
construction.
start, I didn't wanna bring too much up, but I thought I just wanted to find out kind of the status a little bit about
Yeah,
some
and
of those.
we could get some further construction bills, because usually once they close it out, speaking with Susan and Mark, then we get reimbursed by the grant dollars, and that's when we pay the actual construction dollars, once we get the money too. And it might not cover 100%, but it's gonna be very close.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, I just wanted to point something out and ask about another one. Under the credit card for Mark Miller, there's Peterbilt DEF tanks for the amount of $15.52 This accounts for 2 of these DEF tanks that need to go onto our trucks in order for the diesel trucks to run. Thanks to Mark for finding them for so little money. And now he said his fleet is prepared for the winter, which is great. And then Dave, I talked to you yesterday about batch 7 of 8, page 6. This is the Hershey's Mill Dam, $81,000. And I asked if you could figure out, I don't know if you can even, what's the total spent so far, and how much more is available for this project?
Yeah, so we've got about 800,000 that we've paid so far, and only about 340 of that is total site construction. And we're estimating that probably we could get $1 million worth as they try and close out the rest of this year. And then we would be reimbursed the $630,000 from the grant that we have.
Can you say that one more time?
Sure.
I'm just trying to follow it.
So we paid 800,000.
Okay,
Of that, only 340,000 was for construction.
okay,
So most of it is engineering and permitting so far. And then we have about $1 million outstanding in costs, most likely, to close out all the plantings and the construction costs. They think that they're gonna be able to finish everything but the plantings by December. Mark Miller and I are a little skeptical of that, but that's what they'd like to try and do. And then once we close this out, then we would get reimbursed $630,000 we have for grants.
okay. And then as far as the Milltown Dam that has not yet begun, that's not been sent out for bid yet, has it?
No,
What need the permit?
yeah, so Eric from Gannett Plumbing and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago, and DEP Dam Safety is saying the permit is basically imminent. So that's all I have right now.
Okay.
But until that happens, then we can I'm hoping we can proceed with bidding sometime in the first 2 months of 2023. That's my goal.
Yeah, we were planning on getting a new cost estimate as well.
Yeah.
Before we go out to bid.
Okay, new cost estimate on that. And then if I can just bring it forward as well, under the ACH debits to general funds expense report, our M&T monthly fees are out of hand. $575 in bank fees alone. And I'm really hopeful that you are going to find a better home for our money.
Well, let me interrupt with Michelle on that one, to try and give a little perspective. My prior world, and if I'm not mistaken, these fees are associated with protective measures, positive pay and insurances that we don't have accountant and bank fraud. At East Bradford, we had some. And at the time, we did not have those services in place. as much as $80 a month per account for these positive pay and the, can't remember the other one that we had with now Truist, BB&T. But they clearly assured, it's a real insurance operational process to avoid fraudulent bank issues. And the township, we were out close to $40,000. It was all recovered, but it was a real wake-up call. Instead of being penny wise, pound foolish, we put these services in place, and our costs were approximately, for amongst the 5, 6, 7 funds we had in 12 or more accounts, we were seeing $500 or $600 a month in the fees. And we talked about, well, you know, you have a couple $1 million of our money. You can't waive these fees. There's very little room for them to be able to do that because they're essentially an outside service that they're contracting. So I'm going to guess that's part of it. I may have interrupted incorrectly, but the experience I had was we really need these things, and the banks are just not giving it away.
That's
Okay.
a large part of it, but we are planning an RFP for banking towards
Great.
the end of the year so that we can evaluate both the fees, but also in my discussions with a number of neighboring financial directors, there seems to be a trade-off. So talking about bank policies and investment levels, some banks are going to give you a better interest rate and then they charge you more fees. Some give you less fees, less interest rate. So we kind of want to evaluate all of those together and see what the best bang for our buck and total we can get is.
Thanks for that explanation. That's very helpful. Thanks, Mike.
Very good. Any other questions about the, public comment? Any questions about the? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Old business,
That's good to know.
we have a final Q&A before our November 16th preliminary budget considerations. A little bit of a preliminary budget revision summary that we've looked at. Anybody have any questions? There's no motions involved here. It's just a public discussion about the original proposed budget and how we've gotten to a balanced budget. So we've done a lot of work on this. So if anyone has any questions or comments from the board. All right.
It's been a good process to bring us down to under the second class township code, municipalities like East Goshen Township and any of the other municipalities in the county, we are required by that code and law to have a balanced budget every year. Be good for other entities to have that, wouldn't it? At any rate, we can balance the budget with unappropriated fund balance, our savings account, if you will, our fund balance and our general fund. That's a legitimate thing to do to balance the budget. But we've made every effort possible to not use that fund balance and to balance it based upon real revenue that we can anticipate through taxes and other sources and the expenditures. So you know yourself with your own households, with our own households, when you're managing your cash flow by using your savings, obviously that's ultimately a losing proposition. So we were able to work with staff, and each of the board members had quite a bit of input on various measures, both revenue and expenditure, to really reduce almost a $600,000 deficit and getting it back to zero. And not smoke and mirrors, it's really pretty well, it's plainly presented here, and they're real dollars. And we think that a couple of the changes we made in the revenue, which we increased, real estate transfer tax, as one example, are not rose-colored glasses. We think they're legitimate, and so I think we have a pretty good budget for next year. And maybe a preliminary, premature announcement, but I don't think there's any kind of a tax increase. related to the budget
In 2022.
in 2022.
Are you taking full credit for that, Mike?
No, I'm not. That's why I say collaborative.
Yeah, the other thing that folks ought to know, because there's been discussion, public comment, and comment from the board about this, is that, as you all know, we have a general fund where we depreciate our capital equipment, our trucks and so on. So when we're ready to buy a $154,000 truck, we have the money in the budget to do that. Not all townships do that. What we're beginning to realize, a lot of other townships across the country, there's a movement now of looking at infrastructure, curbs and stormwater management and sewer systems as an enterprise fund paid for by sewer bills. But we have parks, we've got ponds, we've got a lot of infrastructure that we're responsible for that are aging and can surprise us financially. So one of the things that we've done this year in the budget is we've set aside what we're calling the sustainability infrastructure fund. We're funding it with $1.2 million, basically moving that out of our savings account, if you will, our operational fund, and earmarking that for both reactive and proactive issues when we run into them. And the plan is to build that up in recognition that we have a mature municipality with aging infrastructure. And rather than have those surprise us as a budget event every year, where we might have to borrow or do something else, we'd like to plan for it. So we've begun a process where we're going to develop this infrastructure, the sustainability plan, and hopefully fund it for the future so that we don't have these emergency situations, and we can plan to replace our aging infrastructure. That includes parks, open space, ponds, the playground, all sorts of things. And one of the things we're going to do is inventory that, what we're responsible for, and then develop a long-range plan to fund that. So it's a significant aspect that we've done in our budgeting process. So
And it is long-term planning. We're seeding the fund this year. We're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna fund it in the future. But it's not, it doesn't have to do with not managing your resources and assets responsibly. But there are certain assets that, frankly, and I guess this is, with growing up as a baby boomer, we were thinking about the present, but not the future as much as I think we should have as a generation. And this infrastructure is catching up with our entire society and our country and worldwide. And this is just a start, but things like, we call them the ponds that the township owns. They're essentially stormwater facilities. They just happen to be retention basins, not detention. So they have a pond-like approach. And we've agreed in the prior years that these are assets that we need to steward and take care of. We own them and we have to maintain them in a healthy condition for both the aesthetics as well as the property values for those who are right next to them or near them, like Marydale, which has been a great example of it as the first one. And we really didn't have funds put aside. We had not depreciated those and wasted those assets to put funds aside the way we've done with our fleet and with the building and other things. And it's not unusual but in local government or in the private sector that certain assets just kind of put them aside to say, we can't afford to fund them. Like bridges. Bridges are a great example. We have a number that we own. We do not depreciate our bridges and capital schedule fund them. And we're not alone. I would dare a guess that there's not a municipality in Chester County that does that. But it's something we're now thinking about because we need to think about it. But we don't have all the parts of this puzzle figured out yet, but this is a start and it's an initiative. And I think the board has really done a good job with the staff to say, it's time to begin to think about the future here and not just react to it, but be able to respond to it at the proper time.
I think one of the ways we can start to fund this new account is by taking overages. And I think that Dave and I talked about that, about taking overages that perhaps we have a little bit left over from this year's budget.
Budget surplus.
So if there's a budget surplus from our police department, if there's any budget surplus anywhere, we can start using that to fund this account.
Yes, next business item is dissolution of the business park task force, so we set that up.
Do you have a chance to ask questions about the budget?
Sure.
Well, there's no motion on the table,
No,
so
we're not
so
adopting.
we're not adopting it tonight, so.
Adopting, but if you have a general question for us, I think,
Yeah, well, I thought these workshops were all for.
In public comment, we can,
I can wait till then if you want.
Great.
All right.
I'd like to get to the agenda here, so. Next on the agenda is a dissolution of the business park task force that was set up with a specific mission. That task force gave us a great presentation to us at the last board meeting of their findings. And it ends their mission, so.
Yeah, this is actually just more of an FYI, Mr. Chairman, because there was a sunset provision when you guys passed it in 2020, stating that when the final report is put forth, then it is extinguished at that time. So there is no action to take. If the board wanted me to look into that as far as this.
I
And that was some good foresight. So,
So, you know, I
thank
look
you.
at this resolution from 2020, and now I see it highlighted that it was built into that resolution. So this is really an announcement.
Yes.
And
There's no action.
Yeah.
So,
Next, final item in old business is to consider a resolution to establish the ARPA, and Derek can give the public the background on that, but it's a kind of a formality that we need to take care of, kind of again, dotting the i's.
So this is this goes back to the summer. Dave Ware brought to my attention last week. We had obviously passed a resolution to allocate the COVID funding that we received from the federal government. So we did that in summer. What Dave brought to my attention, what we did not do was we did not establish a resolution for the ARPA fund. We actually, as a township, not that it was legally necessary, but we thought it was better to segregate the money into a separate fund. So we created the ARPA fund,
And ARPA is.
American Recovery.
American Rescue.
Just speaking English, we're getting roughly $1.9 million of COVID money, half of it coming in 2021, half of it coming in 2022. We anticipate that there will be, audits and making sure this is clean, so we didn't want to mix funds. So we created a separate account to spend that money in accordance with the law.
So we allocated the money, but we did not create the fund for that resolution.
So there, Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion to pass resolution 2021-2014, ratifying the creation of an American Rescue Plan Act fund and authorizing the implementation of a plan for the uses of the Federal Relief Act money deposited into the fund.
second that, and that technically is 2021 resolution 214.
Any further comment from the board?
Comment.
John.
I made the point before, I want to make it again. We have, 900,000
This year.
plus a few pennies, and it's sitting in the bank, not making very much interest. Why aren't we moving ahead on some of these projects before they get more expensive?
Is there an RFP out for the?
I'm actually just waiting on a bill so we have 950,000 right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we're waiting for the bill from West Goshen, which is gonna be 915,000.
Okay, so you have it spent then,
It should be spent by the
and
end of the
we're
year.
committed to that 915.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
also
Never mind.
the hybrid meeting,
And the hybrid meeting.
the hybrid
will
meeting
take
will be,
the other 35.
Yes.
and that'll be paid
Okay.
before.
We wanna get
That's
off the
good.
books by this year.
Spend it because the prices are gonna go up.
Yeah, just so folks know, these monies that we're receiving, half this year and half next year, the second receipt will be in June, I think, something like that. They're allocated to 2 sewer projects, and it's great relief money. One of them is the West Town Pump Station, which is bit of a misnomer, it's just based on location. It's the prime pump station where substantial amounts of our public sewerage goes to that pump station, then to West Goshen for processing. And it's a major rehab. It's been a project under design and review for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years. And we're finally at the point where we've had bids and where it's getting done. And the other part of the spending, which will contribute to a project that is failed, we were talking about infrastructure just a moment ago, an unanticipated failed sewer main in the north part of the township. The estimate now, I think we're around $900,000. If I'm not, I've lost track of it. It's over $1 million now. And those are dollars that we didn't have in reserve. So this relief money is really a blessing, understanding that we do have a $30 trillion national debt. It still is helping local government, but it's an example of infrastructure that is aging, that could fail. We could have another one of those in our system next year. We don't know. And even though we're televising each year and trying to be proactive with our system, and Public Works does an amazing job keeping up with it, that's an example. So these monies are really going to be well appreciated for 2 projects that both the West Towns pump station, it increased over time. And to your point, John, you get these early engineering estimates. By the time the project gets started, whether it's supply chain issues or just cost of living, inflation, the escalation can double over a 5-year period, and these costs.
So,
The motion on the table.
yeah, we have a motion on the table to approve the, any public comment regarding the, okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0.
Thanks for getting this set up.
Russ, we have a lot of new business items to take care of, so I'm gonna, as chair, I can rearrange the order of the agenda. So if you'd like to make public comment regarding the budget at this time, would you please come to the microphone?
Just have a plus rank 451 Gateway Drive. 3 questions that have been nagging me since the meeting back on September 14th. And I, due to family reasons, I couldn't make the other meetings. The easiest one to discuss is about these bridges we were just talking about. Isn't that $5 tax on each motor vehicle tag to cover that kind of stuff in the state of Pennsylvania?
State-owned bridges.
State-owned bridges.
Yes, so
Okay.
not local. These, when I say bridges, we're really referring to.
To things like box culverts that are bridged, but not with spans that are 50, 75, 500 feet.
Yeah.
About Forest Drive,
State-owned.
the bridge was damaged 2 years ago by an automobile accident. We rebuilt that bridge. That's our bridge.
Yeah, that's an example in Florida.
It's
Yeah, that's
more
a
like
good
a
example.
culvert.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
The other 2 are bond issues.
Hmm.
This has been nagging me for years now, since the beginning of this trail. And I have an email back from John, Dave's previous person that had that job, and I quote, it says, so I asked him about these bonds, how many we have, what are they there?
Mhm.
And that time, John said, the reason that bond service payments were lower for the first few years is that we were still paying off applicable bonds until 2019.
Mhm.
Perfect, I understood that one.
Mhm.
And bonds issued in 2003 for a number of small projects until 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So how many bonds are out there, the total outstanding debt, and how will it impact the residents, including the Pagoda Trail?
Let me see if I can give a little bit, and Dave can fill in some details. We receive a monthly debt payment breakdown from the staff and the Director of Finance. Presently, the township has 2 general fund bonds. And the one that you referenced, that was a 2003 issuance, originally for $5.5 million. The remaining principal is a little over $1 million. That retires at the end of '23. And then we have the 2017 bond, that was a multi-purpose bond that had to do with the playground, the dams, the Paoli Pike Trail. That is a retirement date of 2037. Before I comment on the 3 bonds that are outstanding for the sewer fund, again, a separate fund and an enterprise fund that are completely distinct from the general fund, oftentimes when it's a public or a private entity, but for municipal bonds, when a municipality needs funds that it otherwise cannot obtain through its revenues, normal revenue sources, property tax, et cetera, for projects particularly, and it has outstanding debt, not the underwriter, but the financial advisor will work with the municipality to oftentimes wrap one bond around the other. It's done in school districts all the time. If you saw the list of bonds that the school district has, example, Westchester, your mind would be spinning because one wraps around the other, meaning in the early years while you have maintained your cash flow for payment of an existing bond, and the principal payments are substantial, wrapping a new bond issue means that for the first number of years until that other bond is extinguished, you have very limited principal payments and you're just paying interest on it. So the wraps keep you in debt, but it is, and you get to a point with bond debt, similar to one of our municipalities right next door, that made a decision going forward pertaining to their sewer that they were not going to assume more debt, they were going to pay going forward, meaning through the ratepayers. I think it's a proactive approach. You pay for what you really should be doing instead of borrowing for people's future. But so there are two bonds outstanding for the general fund. Our recent AAA bond rating review to confirm and maintain that, they take that into account to analyze whether or not the township is capable and can ensure that those are going to be repaid and there's stability in the township with future revenue sources. That's one of the things that just occurred. When we look at the 3 bonds that are associated with the sewer fund, we presently have a total of $9.5 million of outstanding bond debt for the sewer fund. And those bonds are, retirement dates are 2032, 2033, and 2037. We just talked about some of these infrastructure matters that we have right now with the Westtown pump station, this unexpected failure of the system. And were it not for this COVID relief money, we would have probably had to go out for another bond issue. And it is, it's very unsettling because we're already looking at debt for the sewer fund that's 16 years out. And that's, you get to a point, and I think West Goshen did, our neighbor, that decided we can't, and West Goshen is financially pretty strong. We cannot continue to take on this debt. We've got to pay it now. We've got to build it into our rate structure. So with regard to the bonds and what we have outstanding, we think it's manageable. The credit rating company certainly does. Could we pay off a couple of these bonds if we wanted to? Could we pay off the current one that's going to expire in 2023? We could pay that out of general fund right now. We could do that. But right now it's being managed effectively. But I will say that the sewer fund has got the municipal authority concerned about where we are with our bond debt and whether or not the municipal authority will have to recommend next year or the year after whether or not we should start to pay for it, and we're going to have to raise our rates to accommodate these infrastructure expenses with our aging system. So I probably didn't answer your question, but it's a little background anyway. Dave, you may have some specifics, but Russ, go, ask your questions or say, Mike, you don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm following what you're saying. I'm just curious, how many ponds are out there?
There are 5 right now,
Okay.
3 with sewer, 3 with
I
sewer.
think the presentation they put out in the first meeting
Yeah.
actually showed more ponds than I thought we actually had.
We had one that was just exhausted, we just finished that one and matured, but these are the 5. And this is available if you want to see, John. John?
That's included.
Just want to make a point, Dave has the numbers up. Dave, what are we paying a year on the
Oh, I can
bonds?
see that.
How much are we paying on the
Well,
bonds?
we have bonds and loans, and the total is, if you include sewer and the general fund, it's about $1.5 million a year, with principal and interest.
But if you take sewer out as an enterprise fund.
It's about $500,000.
So,
Can't take it out.
And Russ,
even
what are
in
you
that-
talking about, the
We're paying.
wrapping?
yeah, but
If you wanna
it's,
look
but
at
it's
the
an
fund
enterprise
screen.
fund, so it's a separate fund that's being paid by.
If you wanna look up the
User
screen.
fees, you say user fees.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what an enterprise fund is.
Yeah, an enterprise fund is sustained by the enterprise, and the enterprise is, in this case, a sewer service. So the customers, the ratepayers, our customers, our residents who are on public sewer, are paying to sustain that fund, its operations, and its infrastructure. So that's what an enterprise fund is, it's self-contained. We have a refuse and recycling fund that's essentially an enterprise fund. Regrettably, we're gonna have new, higher rates for our refuse and recycling collection because of our new contract. We do 5-year contracts and things change. So we're gonna have a rate increase there, but that is contained within that fund as an enterprise fund, that particular service. So we have a sewer fund, refuse and recycling, they're both enterprise funds.
The sewer represents about $1 million a year, and the operating fund is an operating.
General fund.
$500,000.
Yeah.
So that's what we're paying every year on the bonds.
And if you wanna see what a wrap is that Mike was referring to, if you look at the highlighted part that I have there,
Yep.
that's the 2017 general fund part of the bond. You can see in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, it's only $5,000 in principal. Then all of a sudden in 24, it jumps up to $320,000 in principal.
Right.
And that's at the same time that the 2003 bond comes off. So you take the $387,000 off for the 2003 bond because it's done, and now the principal kicks in on the other. That's the wrap, you back to back to back it, so that you can afford to pay it.
Then the last thing is the sewer and trash. John, you and I spoke on this at the end of the meeting on September 14th, and at that time, you were alluding to the fact that it's a user fee.
Yes.
I think it's a definition that is not, really sits well with the residents. And the reason why I say that, if I can finish, is that the whole budget that you have over there for a previous thing, that's all user fees. When you pull them down to it, it's a user fee. We're paying you, the township, to do all the stuff for us to live your property. Sewer and trash is part of that. So what you're really saying is, because I've heard this years and years of, in the past, we're not raising our property tax. No, you're not raising the property tax, but the sewer and trash adds another $1,000 a year to the budget of my household. So really, you're paying $1,200 in taxes to East Ocean to maintain the lifestyle.
Yes,
So I think it's just a definition
So,
problem.
yeah, I can buy
It's-
it. Now,
It's a
let me,
little bit more than a definition problem, but you're right. I can't argue with what you're saying. It's money coming out of your pocket and going to the township. The point is, when it's a user fee, it's got to go to one function. We can't charge a user fee for your trash and then turn it around and say, well, we're gonna spend
Fix
that
a
in the
part.
township.
So it's definition on the way you account for it.
It's where it's used. The general collections that we make, that we call taxes, can be used at any point that we decide that we're going to spend money. It can be on the building, it can be on the park, it can be, you name it. But when I call it a user fee, I don't mean you're not paying it, you're definitely paying it.
Right.
But it goes specifically to one thing. The sewer fees, for example, go distinctly and definitely to the sewer and the plants, pumping stations, thank you. So that's the only distinction, otherwise, yeah,
Yeah,
user fees, taxes, they all come out of your pocket and come to us.
and to be clear though, too, understand that there are people who don't actually have our service for trash and refuse or for the sewer. So Hershey's Mill, for instance, the entire community is self-sustaining. They don't pay, those residents don't pay the township for trash and recycling or for their sewer, because they're self-contained.
So their sewers never touch our sewers?
Correct.
Correct.
It's
So they have their own sewer
on-site
treatment plant.
spray irrigation system that they have.
Exactly.
That's what's going on in 352 at the bend, with the sprayers?
Yes, that's right.
I was wondering what it was.
It's a different name, but the name of the sewer operation in Hershey's Mill, in the villages of Hershey's Mill, is called the Green Hill Sewer Association. And it is part of a spray application system, and that's when you see that, but that is all internal. We don't see a thing
Right.
from that. However, if their system failed, DEP would be looking to the township to say, hey, guess what? Like, they maintain it very well. But Russ, you're correct. In fact, I could look at my Verizon bill or my Pico bill as a tax or a user fee at the same, but it's a different enterprise, but it is specific. And that's the point John was making. It is for one service and we can't meld the fund. We couldn't take money out of the sewer fund to prop up our general fund if we needed it. If you do, you get in trouble. And that's why municipal government operates on these multi-fund basis so that there is a more distinct accounting and more clarity and transparency.
I open this up to public comment regarding the budget. Does anyone else have any, members of the public have any other budget issues that they'd like to talk about? And I'll open public comment further a little bit later on in the meeting. Great, thank you. All right, moving on with new business. We're gonna, I'll take a motion to table the first agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I would make a motion to table both the Westtown, Goshen Regional Police Department proposal for qualifications, as well as the Futures Committee request for additional surveys. Can we make one motion out of the two?
Why? Why?
We're tabling, we would like to table those
Seems like they're.
till next week when people are, when things are more detailed,
Okay,
when somebody can actually be
I'll
present.
second the motion.
Let's
Want to just separate them?
friendly amendment to separate them, yeah.
No, that's fine, then I'll just make the amendment to consider the Westtown East Goshen Regional Police Department proposal request for qualifications, to table that, until a future meeting.
I'll second
Okay, thank you. Just to give some background to that, we have an intermunicipal agreement with Westtown. We're looking at putting out a request for qualifications to do a police staffing study for the Vigo Police. We've had back and forth regarding the RFQ, and we're not prepared to look at that tonight because of some information we've gotten back from Westtown. So we will, our partner, so we will table that and then roll it out at a subsequent meeting. So thank you. Any other board members, members of public questions about that? I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries to table that till the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, then I'd also make a motion to table the Futures Committee's request for additional surveys until such time one of those members can be present to present those to us.
Second motion.
Do we have any members of the Futures Committee? Okay.
I think that's a good point.
Okay, that's good.
I actually did see Tom Kilburn yesterday and he talked about the survey.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought he or one of the other members would be
Yeah.
here tonight.
They had asked to table.
They
They had asked to table.
Okay, they're asking to table it to future session. Okay.
Oh.
I was not aware. I was not aware of
That's
that.
fine.
All right, any members of the public? have any
Sorry.
comments on that? I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. The next item is to consider deed of dedication of the 600 and 604 Reservoir Road. This is a interesting situation.
They simply want to take the two lots that they own and consolidate them, which is.
It's a reverse subdivision.
That is correct.
That's exactly right, it's a reverse
This
subdivision.
is about as easy as a quote-unquote land development you would get in this
Ever.
business. Yeah, so usually the owner, I think it started where they wanted to build some sort of deck structure, and he realized he was over the lot line,
Oh,
but
interesting.
he owned the other
The
lot.
other lot, wow,
So
wow.
that's sort of where we're coming from here, and they give a nice little letter in the packet of their intentions here. And again, this is simply extinguishing a lot line and the setback line that went with the other lot and making it into one large lot, which the owner owns both. So
Yeah.
There's no problem with it, staff doesn't have problems with it.
No.
we reviewed it, we didn't have any issues with it. It was just a matter of, it looked like in the past, East Goshen has handled this through this type of deed, passing the deed in the recorder of deeds versus doing a whole subdivision plan process. So that is what we are seeking tonight.
Before a motion may be made, I just want to ask one question about it. It is simple in, when you own both lots and consolidating them rather than trying to do something more and split them up. Is there any question about whether there are any clouds on any of either of the deeds that would interfere with a consolidation? I can't fully construct what that could be, but oftentimes,
We did not see anything, and
Okay.
another deed of consolidation is necessary to record the county,
Okay.
so those two will go away.
Okay.
So if there was anything that would come up during the process, but we did not see anything
All right.
during our initial process.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board waive the Board of Supervisors waive the subdivision plan submission requirement and authorize this consolidation of these two adjoining parcels owned by Joseph L. and Elizabeth D. Mulcahy, 600 Reservoir Road, Westchester, PA 19380, consisting of tax parcels 53-498 and 53-498.2, known as lots 2 and 3.
Second motion.
Any other further question on this?
I just wanted to know, so will this preclude them from ever subdividing again?
No.
No, they could come back with a subdivision.
So, but then their
That's a,
deck will be over the line again.
yeah, so what I was just about to say is that's a bigger lift, but what you they don't necessarily have to come back with the same line is
They
right
can
now.
subdivide it in a different manner.
Yeah, so, but subdividing, in
Okay.
my opinion, is a little bit of a heavier lift, and the township would take a look at that
Yeah.
a lot harder than a reverse subdivision.
And to subdivide with potentially a non-conforming lot would be a roadblock right off the bat. So,
I guess
But-
Mark Gordon is not here to answer the other questions, okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Any members of the public, comments? Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next one is kind of an interesting issue. Willistown Township Sewer Agreement and Resolution. We have 3 homes in Willistown Township that have been using our sewer system for a long time, so.
That is correct. So I don't know if anybody's seen the news, but Willistown sold their sewer system to Aqua. So they are going through that vetting process legally. Through that, Willistown's lawyer had contacted us and basically said, hey, there's 3 lots in our township that it feeds into the East Goshen system, but we can't find any paper trail on them, and DEP's essentially giving us a hard time because there's no intermunicipal agreement. Digging into it a little bit more, these 3 lots have been paying, they paid the tap-in fee when it happened, they're paying the quarterly bill.
Yeah.
So it's all legitimate, above board, it's just a matter of Willistown would like us to do an actual intermunicipal agreement so that there is a record of this relationship.
the only comment, I'm certainly supportive of it, and our neighbor. The only thing I would suggest to my colleagues is that we didn't initiate this. It's something they're doing. They're selling their system for, I don't know, $3, $5, $8, $10, $50 million. I don't know. They're in the process. I don't believe we should be incurring any costs associated with this. And if Willistown was willing to reimburse or pay the township for our expenses to accommodate this intermunicipal agreement and their request, I would be fully supportive of their request. And so it might be a friendly amendment to a motion that's in front of us.
What are you thinking, 2 or 3 million?
Maybe there's some of their stock.
Yes. Okay.
But you see what I mean. We want to be good neighbors, but legal fees to advertise and for our attorney. May amount to us, it may end up being a couple $1,000s. It's not gonna break our bank, but I think that that's a reasonable thing to request, my opinion.
Absolutely, I'm full agreement.
That's a great idea. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we pass resolution 2021-2012 to approve an intermunicipal sewage agreement with Westtown for 3 lots along Line Road with the provision that our attorney's fees or administrative fees are reimbursed by the requester.
I second the motion.
Thank you, John. Any further questions from the board? I think that's a great amendment to that.
I like that. I do want to know, do you have any idea how much the fees are? And is the municipal authority going to have to also do this same resolution?
They did it last night.
Okay, great.
They didn't need to do the resolution because they're not
They-
board. They just actually signed and passed the actual agreement.
To us.
Which David will have to sign tonight.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Well, we had to pay for this.
Yeah, this memo in front of us, that would be one of the expenses that they would,
I would
I
have
would
to-
leave that to you, Derek.
I'd have to get an itemized
Great, of
receipt
course.
and then go from there.
But you can share that with Sally maybe and let her
Yeah.
know.
Perfect.
I mean, essentially, I'll hold the resolution and maybe won't have David sign for the check.
Good.
Sounds great.
Well, at least if they concur with that, with reasonable fees
Yeah.
and you would provide.
Any,
You know what to do.
any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Next is consider the reapproval of a dump truck purchase.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. Mark Miller texted me and said they are bearing all expenses.
Wow, so this is a moot point, this is moot in front of us.
Yeah, just, that's, yeah, thank you. That's good that we can pass
I didn't
just
see Mark here.
public awareness. We
He's
had an order for a dump truck, supply chain issues. The winning bid came back because of the cost of steel and everything else going up. Wanted to amend the bid. We went back to CoStar, which is the procurement organization from the state, and we negotiated back and forth. It looks like they're eating the cost, so that's a moot point. So we'll pass by this, and they're honoring the original approved purchase price.
For the dump truck?
Yeah, that what,
Right, that's what,
isn't that what you just waived?
that's what I.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry
boy.
for the confusion.
Oh, boy. Oh.
Willistown is bearing all expense.
Oh, on the previous.
On the
purchase.
previous
Oh, I'm so disappointed now. You would I thought you made my day.
Okay.
Well,
Forget
now we're
everything I
looking-
said in the last 2 minutes.
Am I gonna get that taken out of my face?
I don't know, boy, you just dashed me, I thought we were really.
I was
One
so
one.
excited.
So Willistown.
Willistown buys a truck.
I'm glad that you all shared my misunderstanding.
I did too. I was right there with you, David.
All right, so Derek, give us the background on the truck.
So I was actually I was actually with Mark when he received a call from the salesman. So, you know, they called us out of the blue and essentially said, listen, because of the chip issues in all the vehicles experiencing and having to upgrade those and the price of steel, the price that your board agreed to back in the summer, which you guys did, is no longer valid and we need to bump it up 15 grand. So that was the original number we got out of the blue. And the way the salesman essentially explained to us was the manufacturer is operating under the fact that if you don't want it, there's 100 other municipalities that will line up and take it for that price.
And that is, I understand that.
And that's bad business, but that's kind of where they're at right now.
What
Well,
goes
bad
around
business
comes
for us,
around.
yeah. So we had contacted CoStars to, Mark and I were a little bit baffled that they can change the CoStars pricing, which was already set. And we did go back and forth with CoStars, we got them involved. They reached out on our behalf, and now we have it down to $9,000 over the original. So we went down from 15 to 9, so we saved $6,000. Mark believes he can make that up on the resale, because the resales for dump trucks are
Or way up too, and I know he's done very well with those resales.
So we are seeking, I guess, an amendment to the dump truck purchase price of an increase for $9,000. We did ask the question of, what's preventing you from for us to go through this process again and you changing the number again? And
He said, go ahead, have at it, you'll wait another year for the.
well, they basically said, oh, well, you have nothing but our word, but, we promise we won't do it again. So.
All right, well, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we agree to the increase for the cost of the dump truck from the amount of $114,702 to the new total of $125,285 for the chassis. And that is an increase of $9,852.02.
I'll second the motion with the understanding that I have underlined the name G.I. Sayre and CoStars, and at some point in the future, I hope we can get $9,800 back from them, one way or the other.
And I'd like to make one friendly amendment, offer one friendly amendment to the motion, and that is that we reluctantly
Yes,
accept.
reluctantly.
All right, any further board comment? Any public comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Seems like we really.
So
It'll
excited.
be interesting to see what we get for the old dump truck, because I think
Well,
the same market we're in for the.
Yeah,
for the used.
well, you asked Mark what he was gonna, he puts it on,
Municipal.
Municipal.
for a certain amount, but then just like real estate these days, it can be bid up.
Mhm.
So I'll be curious, he'll share with us what he's gonna put it on municipal bid for, and then,
Yeah.
and then we can see if we end up becoming winners.
And if members of the public wonder why our trucks always look so nice and clean and why we have a wash bay and all those kinds of things, when we resell our equipment is in demand because they know how we take care of our equipment.
That's
when we
true.
sell it, so it comes back that way. So, all right, next issue is approval of some stormwater O&Ms for 600 Reservoir Road and 1690 Hunter's Circle.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to accept the staff recommendation to authorize the chair to sign these agreements. So I would move that the board authorize the chairman to sign the storm water management operation and maintenance agreements for 600 Reservoir Road and 1690 Hunter's Circle.
Second motion.
Any further board questions? All those, any public comment? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Next is the designation of agent for the FEMA process. Derek, you want to just give a color on this?
Yes, we are going through the process right now with FEMA to recover funds that were, essentially we had damage during Hurricane Ida to a couple of culverts, and the public assistance program for FEMA finally came online, and we are going through that process in order to get reimbursed for those expenses that we incurred during Hurricane Ida.
No, that's the
Hurricane FEMA.
I went to FEMA, that's a hurricane too.
This is not my best night.
That's
You will have other ones.
But so Mark's initial estimate was, right now these are just estimates, but maybe somewhere between 25 and 30 grand for some of the damage incurred. So Bart Phillips, our staff accountant, has handled the FEMA process in the past, and they need a designated person in order to go through the process. And we were just making that request that we make Bart Phillips that person.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion, we designate the staff accountant Barbara Phillips as our agent during the Hurricane Ida FEMA application process.
Second.
Any further discussion of the board? Any public comments? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. The next is,
Christmas tree sales?
yeah, consideration of, Christmas tree sales, at Wiggins Auto Tech. We've, this is a,
Perennial.
I've done this,
Perennial.
every year for 4 years, so, I'll entertain a motion to approve Bob's request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request of Robert Wiggins to sell Christmas trees at his location at 1301 Westchester Pike, starting approximately 11/20/21 and ending on 12/24/21.
Second motion.
Any questions, comments?
Comment is, I buy my tree there, so I have to do this.
Me too on the 24th and a half.
It's a typo in the draft letter.
What's that?
The date, November 9th, should be 2021.
Oh, thank you, yeah, I
Yeah,
got that from last year, but thank you.
okay. Any, other public comment? Call the question, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. And finally,
Yep, Derek had a request for the ABC.
ABC planning. Every year we do a planning meeting for our, agent, our, all our advisory boards and committees and councils. We're looking at, making that when.
That's a Tuesday, January 25th, it's 6:30 as opposed to
Used to be.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
We can, I'll take the lead here since I'm the new person, but it looks like you have done it in the past, the last couple of years, the last Tuesday in January.
Yeah.
So
Can we do it at 6 as opposed to 6 or even number?
do whatever time you want.
Let's do 6. Why not?
6.
Half hours confuse me.
Everyone's good with that date.
We don't need to have a motion, do we?
I like calling Derek the new guy because for so
We
long,
were the new guys.
Michelle and I were the new people.
Do we need to make a motion on this? We can just, it's already been sunshined.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Okay,
No.
that's a good date.
All right, so
Okay.
the 25th at 6 o'clock.
Yep.
The ADPs and,
Yeah, I would have to make a separate ad though, Michelle, because it starts at 6.
Right,
So I can't say that every Tuesday at 7 PM sunshine,
Okay.
as usual, if we're doing it at 6. So
okay.
I have a request though, and that is, can Derek and staff give some direction to the ABCs on what we would like to see? Because it's inconsistent, between the different groups. And
Give them a format. that they
give them a
can-
format that they can
That'd
kind
be
of
great.
follow.
That says, here are the accomplishments last year, here's what our targets for next year, and whatever else that they
Good
want
idea.
to discuss.
Yeah,
But
that's a good idea.
I'd like to see some consistency.
I like that too.
Cool.
We're gonna keep you.
I had a good
Have I got a job for you next year?
All right, any other matters?
So speaking of EBCs, I do have under any other matter, I'd like to just toss to the board and to the public that I did some research and found that we have more ABCs in our township than any of our neighboring townships. And so I would like to look at the possibility of perhaps once we've gotten to January and we have the ABC meeting, look to start consolidating some of them, bringing some of them together that make sense to bring together. There's a staff and supervisor required at all these meetings and a recording secretary. And it does end up costing a lot of money and it's a lot of time. We put in
Michelle,
many
how-
hours.
How many do we have?
So we have 16 ABCs. In addition to the 16 ABCs, we also have at least 5 other committees that the supervisors are required to sit on along with staff. There are actually a total of 20 or 20 committees of sorts for supervisors, and there's one that does not require a staff member to attend. At the same time, there are 20 that require staff, and only one of those does not require a supervisor. So the staff is being split into so many directions. Recording secretary time is expensive as well. And so just starting to think about modernizing things, consolidating things, and having our agencies work together a little bit differently, possibly changing the mission of one or two of our groups and have them go in a different direction. So it's just the beginning of the discussion, and it's something where we all need to have a little input on that. But I'd like to just throw that out to you all and just let you know that I've been thinking about that. I don't want to be penalizing, I don't want to eliminate groups, but I think that it does make sense to start bringing them together and having them be a little bit more streamlined in their approach to things, perhaps even going with some of them every other month if possible. So.
I think it's a good initiative, Michelle, and I would maybe perhaps our newest supervisor in January, we could charge that individual with undertaking and analyzing it and giving us, where is he? Is he?
Thanks a lot.
Hi, welcome to the board almost.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Cody. I think it's a good initiative.
Can I just ask a question on that though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is the time of year where Susan and I are starting to get people wanting to, because she has put that out there to serve.
Right.
So are we to administratively put the interviews on hold?
I think that we should.
I think you should carry on.
I think, yeah, we can carry on as usual, but I think that December is always a busy month anyway, and so I'd like to defer some of those interviews to January anyway, just because I think that it's important to also, when we bring in the new supervisor, that person is allowed to be part of that process, at least for some of those interviews if possible. But I think too, when we start looking at how we're going to consolidate them, it might make sense, it almost might make sense to accept applications and tell people that they should attend those meetings of those ABCs in the meantime, but maybe in January, when we've really seriously talked about how to consolidate things, maybe at that point it would be smarter to see where we have vacancies. What do you think?
Well, you know, I think this review is going to take some time.
Yeah.
It's going to take, if we make decisions, there's going to be an acclimation
Right.
and discussion with members of the ABCs. And so I think it's going to take more than a few months to finally settle
Okay.
it out.
So maybe just proceed as normal.
I think so.
We're having a
I know.
ABC meeting on the 25th of January, so
Right.
I think this is a February initiative.
Okay.
That might be a, roll up. We could, obviously we're sharing it in public now, but.
Let me make a point then. If we do what we probably ought to do with these 20 or 21, however you want to count it, it's going to mean that we're going to be dropping people or creating huge commissions, neither of which is a pleasant task. And probably we won't want to make the commissions too large. So we don't want to give people false hope that the automatic reappointment process is going to happen again.
Well, plus by charter, sometimes we limit the number of people that can be on the
Right.
ABC. So that would be part of the study that we would do in February, to look at the impact of that.
And there's a lot of work here. A number of the ABCs, our advisory boards and commissions are ordained. The planning commission, for
Right.
instance, is legislated.
Right, exactly.
The zoning hearing board is legislated. So it's going to be a bit of a complex review. It's going to take some time.
Of course.
But I think it's.
But we need
again,
to,
due
we need to
diligence.
start, we need to start
Yeah.
the process
Yeah.
of discussing it. And I think it's important to, let the ABCs know that this is something that we're considering doing. And it really, like I said, it's more modernization that is rolled out eventually, but, as much as we would like to, make a change quick, but you don't wanna do the wrong thing, and you don't wanna pair groups up that don't seem to work well together.
Yeah, and, you know, and they're,
It's consideration.
yeah, and I think, Michelle, they're bringing them into the conversation through a kind of an informed rollout with everybody would be good. You know, there may be some interesting input from that as to what may work. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm not sure where we're going to land. So, I think it's going to be, I think 2022 is probably going to have a good bit of these kind of conversations. So that's one, Cody, for instance. I think that will be an interesting dynamic relative to the organizational activities here in the municipal government that I think will engage you as well.
Could we make that part of the agenda for the 25th meeting and throw the question?
I think we need to.
Good.
I think we need
Let's
to.
add that to the
So if
agenda.
any interviews come up though in December,
I think status quo.
Just go ahead and schedule them.
Yeah.
Let me suggest that, I think we're having an executive meeting next time. This might be something
This is,
personnel matter.
it's a personnel matter.
We could discuss.
We could discuss it next time.
early next
Sure.
meeting.
Because really, right now, under our new legislative, activity for, our laws for agendas and bringing out new items, really, this isn't on the agenda. So.
No, it's not, exactly.
So I think we kind of.
Yeah, but just to throw it out there, it's something that we do need to start thinking about, and we need to at least bring it up in public and let people know that it's
I think
something that
it
we're
would be
talking
really
about.
helpful so on the 25th, we're saying, what are your accomplishments last year? What are your goals and aspirations next year? It would be interesting to have input from the ABCs on their mission. Would they like to see any kind of revised mission statement on what they want to do?
It's a good idea.
If we do that through our charter, we kind of define the mission, but it'd be interesting to get input from the groups to see, what if they think their mission statement should be changed or altered.
Change is always, an unsettling process for many, and I think that this will.
Being open about it, I
Oh,
think, I think being open about it as well will be helpful.
Absolutely.
And it will, I think, stimulate good conversation. I do have one other thing under any other matter, Mr. Chair. I just want to let you know that as a follow-up from the Business Park Task Force, one of the things that I had agreed to do was reach out to our PICO liaison to determine what some of the complaints were with our power outages in the community. Specifically at Lavazza, I found out that the Lavazza electrical contractor was choosing a cable that was not PICO approved. They were offered many different cables to choose from in a catalog. And so they're hoping that situation will be resolved soon so that those extended power outages won't be occurring. CTDI, their situation was mostly vegetation. It has somewhat to do with some of the aging cable, but for the most part it was vegetation, and they were also, they're also leaked in on one of the recloser switches that were installed in the first quarter. And then one of the Business Park Task Force members complained about Marydell Farm being particularly bad with power outages. And so I spoke with Scott yesterday, Scott Newman, and he said that Marydell is actually on the schedule for all of their cables to be replaced by PICO in 2023. So this is brand new news, and it's going to be at least a $500,000 project. They're going to have to go in and trench, and they will, when they can, go through a duct of some sort under the streets where they can.
We actually did that in my neighborhood last year.
And they did it in Goshen Downs about 3, 4, 5 years ago.
And what they did, well, the issue is that some of the grounding cable is on the exterior of the old cable, and it's a light gauge cable, and there was a single circuit. So what they did is they quadrupled the wattage capability, changed the entire configuration of the grounding, and put a triple loop backup system in so that if you have an outing, it comes back on much more quickly. So the work that they're doing and the improvements will be significant once
Yeah.
gets done, so it's
So,
speaking from my own
yeah, so that
personal
was great. And actually, somebody else from one of the other task force mentioned to me just earlier or just 1 week ago, that Clock Tower is experiencing some issues, and so Scott has promised to get back to me on that. And the last good bit of news is that PICO has started their quarter 4 aggressive vegetation removal program in East Goshen. So that is actually really good news. They're taking down, they're trimming and taking down vegetation that is precariously close to high wires, and they're taking out ash trees if they are in danger of being close to a wire. And they're taking the ash trees free of charge to the homeowner. So
It's interesting you say that because Asplund, one of the subcontractors was on Green Hill Road today. The road was, they had flaggers and everything, taking down more vegetation along those. And those are big lines. I forget whether some of those lines are maybe 40,000 volt lines. They're
Yeah,
big
big.
feeder lines.
Yeah.
And,
How many trucks were up there? Did you count?
at least 4 or 5.
I went up the other day and there were 6
There you go.
along Green.
Yeah,
I went
they're-
up Green Hill, and this is a note I wanted to make too. I went up Green Hill to check out the new lights. And finally, after 8 years of West Goshen complaining, they put in left turn lights for the people coming either way on Green Hill to turn onto Boot Road. So you won't have to sit and watch traffic and watch traffic and watch traffic and not be able to make your left turn.
Yeah,
So we've got
good
that.
improvements.
All right, not to be redundant, is there any other matter? Okay, hearing none, we'll open to any public comment. Any public comment? Okay,
Everyone,
taking care of that. No liaison reports. I'll just acknowledge receipt of a couple correspondence. One from Joe Bonanno with regard to the accident on 352 and the concern over pathways and safe walking on our roads. And also consumer bulletin from the Pennsylvania Office of Consumer Advocacy that Aqua is doing public hearings regarding and the telephone public comment can be made tomorrow and the 12th of the last 2 days regarding their request for rate increase. I think that is it.
You did a good job, Mr. Chairman. I would make a motion
To adjourn.
second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, and Jared.
Thank you, guys.
Have you guys, have the,
Oh, by the way, the recent issue of the